Well, hello there, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet, the Indigo Disk video. Last time we continued capturing some legendaries. If I recall, it was Cobalion, Necrozma, as well as Latios. Indeed, we captured a few of those legendaries, and this time we're gonna try to capture Lugia, Lunala, and Kyogre. Yes, all near water, and so this is gonna be fun. I don't exactly remember where Lugia was. Oh, I think it was around here. Indeed, we're gonna be trying to do that, and so should be pretty good. Today's topic that I want to talk about, it's a longer topic, so I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to go through it, and also I don't know how well I'll be able to go through it. We'll see, because. Yeah, I want to be talking about kind of Pokemon. Oh, there's the Lugia. Kind of want to be talking about Pokemon because, I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk about, but I kind of want it to be Pokemon related because, well, I'm playing Pokemon. um, and so yeah, I think what sparked, I've already been thinking a lot about like Pokemon and some of my opinions on it, just like in general, like very, very in general, my thoughts about Pokemon. And then recently, there's this new game. At least at the time of recording this, the new game is Paul Worlds. That's the new game. I think by the time I upload this video, it's gonna be a long time from now. And so who knows what the situation is with Paul World and Pokemon, right? But I guess just to set the stage, Paul World just came out, and it's a when I first saw Paul World, it looked like Arc Survival to me. I've seen a little bit of Arc Survival. I never played the game, but I've essentially just watched Ethos Lab play it. He used to play a lot of Arc Survival back in the day with like in a server. But regardless, it's like a survival game. It's kind of I want to say a sandbox survival game where there's building and there's crafting and there's this open world and there's monsters. In that game, Arc Survival, there's dinosaurs. And so you capture the dinosaurs and you make them do work for you. You can ride them, and stuff like that, right? And Paul Wars is pretty similar. I mean, it's basically the same thing. This Lugia has recovered, by the way, so this is going to be a bit annoying. Yeah, it's basically the same way. It's basically the same thing that I just mentioned for Paul Wars. There's the crafting, there's the building, there's the exploration, there's the dungeon hunting, There's also the creature capturing. I only have 88 Pokeballs. I might need to buy more than 88 Pokeballs. Don't think this will be enough for the whole video. Unless I catch this Lugia and a few balls. Yeah, so Paul Wars like that. But the thing about Paul Wars is that it's instead of dinosaurs like Ark Survival, it has pals that you capture. And these pals are very, very similar to Pokemon. Very inspired. They seem to be very inspired by Pokemon. And a lot of people are looking at these pals from Power Wars and being like, oh, it's just a ripoff of Pokemon. And immediately, the comment that I kind of, whenever someone says something's a ripoff to Pokemon, guys, I'm literally playing Pokemon right now, alright? I'm a big Pokemon fan. I'm literally playing Pokemon right now, alright? That being said, though, when people say stuff is a ripoff of Pokemon, I mean, I kind of just roll my eyes. Because, like, even though I'm a big Pokemon fan, and, because of that, you might think I'm a big Pokemon defender. Come on. Like, game companies should be able to make monsters that are, like, small, cute, colorful. And it doesn't mean it's a ripoff of Pokemon, necessarily, right? Now, I'm not saying that Paul World didn't rip off Pokemon, Did they or did they not rip off Pokemon? That I can't really say, because I'm not Paul World art concept people, art developer people, I can't say for sure. And definitely a lot of the pals and pal words look like Pokemon from Pokemon, right? But I kind of always assume that, if something looks heavily inspired like Pokemon, then I always assume that, like, that's the end of it. It's just they were just inspired by Pokemon, and at least art concept wise, I'm saying it's inspired by Pokemon, and I feel like there's no malintent, there's no like ripping off Pokemon. That being said, though, it's more than just the monsters looking like Pokemon, but it's also the there's also other concepts that are very, very inspired by Pokemon. Again, I'm not gonna say they're copied by Pokemon, but heavily inspired. For example, there's a capturing mechanic where you throw these balls at the pals, and then you can capture the pals in the balls, which is very similar to Pokemon. And again, I never played Palworld myself, and so unfortunately, I don't really have a good reference to talk about this stuff, but I've seen a little bit of Palworld, so I feel like I can talk about it. But again, I haven't played Palworld yet, so I don't really have a really good grasp on the game, unfortunately. But I do see that there's like a PAL storage system that's very similar to Pokemon. You know, there's a box and you put Pokemon in a box for storage. There's also a typing system. I've seen these PALs have different types like Pokemon. Again, just because it's the typing system, the capturing system, they look like, even if the PALs look like Pokemon, that doesn't exactly mean it's a ripoff, right? Again, I always have a the opinion that they're probably not copying off Pokemon. It's just very heavily inspired, right? But a lot of people are getting a lot of controversy because of this, because of Palworld coming out. A lot of people on the Pokemon side, like big Pokemon people, are saying that okay, Palworld is just a ripoff of Pokemon. Which again, in my opinion, is just kind of you can't say that. It might be a ripoff. I'm not saying it isn't a ripoff, but just immediately saying that it's a ripoff kind of dismisses the, kind of puts malintention in the game, in Palworld's game developers when potentially there isn't. And then people from Palworld are getting mad at like Pokemon fans because now Pokemon fans are being rude to their game, and then Palworld is like, oh, or then Palworld. I'm not saying all fans, but some of the vocal people are saying like, oh, Pokemon is, they're just jealous that this game is popping off. Because Palworld is popping off, a lot of people are playing the game currently, and a lot of sales on Steam is doing really well. The game is only $30, by the way. Pokemon is $60 plus the DLC that I'm playing literally right now, so it's like $95. And so like Palworld is 1/3 of the price of the newest Pokemon game, and so like Palworld is already better in terms of pricing. And there's like, it's a new game, so like people are like playing around, experimenting, and it's fresh. It's a fresh new game. It's a survival game with elements of crafting, elements of battling. There's a lot of elements in that game, which in my opinion makes it very interesting to play, because again, you have a lot of elements in it, and so it can appeal to a lot of people. There's also like guns and stuff. So you can fight Pokemon personal, or I shouldn't say fight Pokemon. You can fight pals personally, and then you can enslave them. And so there's like weird stuff like that, So it's pretty interesting, and the game is doing well. And because Palworld is doing well, when Palworld gets criticized, a lot of people are saying that it's because the Pokemon fan is just jealous that there's this really good game that's popping off. Which again, the game is popping off. And with Pokemon, we're stuck with this. we're stuck with this. Oh, look at that beautiful mountain graphics. Look at the game not running smoothly because it's raining right now, and like it's kind of choppy. It was not that choppy actually. Rain doesn't exactly make it that choppy. But when it's like snowing or hailing or sandstorm, the game looks terrible. Or when the game has a lot of trees, like right now we're in the ocean, so it's not that bad. But when it has a lot of trees, it's the performance of Pokemon Scarlet, it's just awful. It's just awful. As someone who plays this game, like I clocked in a lot of hours in this game, performance is not good. Well, regardless, there's a lot of discourse around this game, and then I guess that's pretty much it. And then a lot of people are just saying, oh, it's a Pokemon ripoff, and then a lot of people are saying, oh, well, Pokemon is just jealous that they don't have a good game like this. Basically kind of the summary of the two sides to it. And again, my opinion is, again, I'm a big Pokemon fan, right? But that doesn't mean I'm going to defend Pokemon. Or that doesn't mean that I'm going to pile onto Pokemon, Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that, we're stuck with games like these, but it's Pokemon, right? And so I guess I kind of want to continue the conversation away from Palworld, because I mean, we'll see how Palworld is. And then a lot of Pokemon people, a lot of like Pokemon fans, or I shouldn't say a lot of Pokemon fans, but the Pokemon fans that hate on Palworld are saying, oh, Paul Wars is just a fad, right? It's doing really well right now because of the new game, but it's gonna die down real soon. And I really hate that comment as well, because that's kind of just saying like, oh, Pokemon is cool, Pokemon is gonna stand the test of time, and Power Wars is just this fad, it's gonna die. And I hate that sentiment as well, just because that's assuming that Power is a bad game. And hey, if Power Wars gets updates and it has a really loyal fan base, and look, if the game is fun, it deserves to be played. If the developers are continuing to add stuff to it, again, it deserves to be played. It's a $30 game. Nowadays, $30 game is pretty good. And Power Wars, what if it releases on other platforms? Okay. And if it releases on other platforms, then again, it deserves to be played more. And so this idea of, oh, Power Wars is just a fad and it's gonna die. People, like big Pokemon fans, are saying that. I kind of don't like that comment either. I kind of don't like that comment either. But who knows? Who knows? Power might not be played that much later on, but who knows? Again, that's something you can't really tell. And if the game really is cared for, I believe it has a pretty long future. I think Ark Survival had a pretty decent run, and I don't see anything different from Paul Wars. I don't think Paul Wars is, I think, doing better than Ark ever did. So I definitely think that Paul Wars has definitely more longevity than Ark Survival does. And Ark Survival was already like got updates and stuff, if I recall correctly. Again, I never played that game, so can't really speak much about it, but I've seen it, so I can speak a little bit about it, right? But anyways, to move the conversation away from Paul Wars, it's like, yeah, it's one of the main issues, or one of the main discourses with Paul Wars happening right now is because of, the state of Pokemon. Or at least when I say the state of Pokemon, I mean the state of the Pokemon video game. The main series Pokemon games, like Scarlet and Violet, like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, or whatever the other game is called, right? This Lugia is being very stubborn. I don't know if I'll be able to capture 2 legendaries this video, if this Lugia is being this stubborn. Yeah, but the issue around Pokemon, again, I've said this a while from playing this game. I literally mentioned it before, but, Scarlet and Violet aren't that good of games. Okay, well, actually, let me phrase it like this. I shouldn't say Scarlet and Violet aren't good of games. Let me phrase it like this, right? In my opinion, if you've never played Pokemon before, or let's say you've only played like the Gen 1 games, like you're a bit of an older person. When I mean older, I mean like I don't know exactly when the first Pokemon games come out, but older person. And you played Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Red when it first came out. Maybe that's like your only Pokemon experience. Maybe you've dabbled into other games. Maybe you play Pokemon Go. I'm assuming a lot of people play Pokemon Go, and a lot of people played 1 or 2 or a few Pokemon games in their lifetime. Maybe even a Mystery Dungeon or something like that, Pokemon Masters or something like that. If you've barely played the Pokemon series, I would not recommend Scarlet and Violet. Straight up. I mean, Scarlet and Violet is not really for people who've are not huge Pokemon fans. Like, I would recommend, a game like Baldur's Gate or something, something like that. Like, a really good game instead of Pokemon. Because let's be honest here, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, especially since the DLC, there's a lot of content with the DLC. But the game, like, I can't consider Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being $60. I have to consider the DLC as part of the initial cost of the game. And so I have to say that Scarlet and Violet is like a $90 game, So, because it's a $90 game, I wouldn't recommend this game to people. Like, I wouldn't recommend it at all for people who, are wanting to play a new Pokemon game, or they want to experience Pokemon for the first time, or they're returning from as a long time player. I would not recommend this game at all. I think that the story is a bit weak in terms of like the story, and the character development is a bit weak. I think that the gameplay mechanics are a bit weak. I think that the content that you do in the game, there's not a lot of content, right? It's just the same. Oh, you're gonna battle. You're gonna battle this guy. You're gonna do a little bit of questing or exploring, and then you're gonna battle this person. There isn't that much to it. The graphics aren't really good or impressive either. The game runs kind of. I mean, look at these mountains. All right, look at these mountains. You think these are pretty looking mountains? Look at how like when the camera kind of sometimes they like look at this. Like, is this good? Did you want that in your AAA game? Look at these mountains inside. Alright, it's not a good looking game. Also, it's only on the Switch. I mean, I'm not sure if you can emulate it or you can play on other platforms, but it's only on the Switch. And so, like, you can barely play the game. Like, if you have a PC, Xbox, PlayStation, if you don't have Switch, if you don't, you can't play this game. You can only play on Switch. That's what I'm saying. You can't play on mobile. You can't play on PC. You can't play on consoles. All right, for example, Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is an easy game to recommend because it's free. It's on all platforms. You know what I'm saying? It's a gacha game. I know that some people might need to stay away from gacha games, but like Genshin Impact is an easier game to recommend because on more platforms. Platforms are a very important thing. As someone who has played on a lot of different platforms, it's pretty important. So that's one of the things to consider when you're thinking about a game. And that's one of the things that Pokemon has historically lacked in its entire lifetime. Pokemon has always historically lacked the platforms to be playing on. And so, I'm sure there's other problems with Pokemon, but those are kind of like the main problems I kind of wanted to mention, right? So, big problems, lot of problems, lot of problems with Pokemon in that sense, right? I need to restore my Gallade's PP in full swipe so that we can do our next battle, which is Lunala. So let me go ahead and heal up because again, PP, ran out of them PPs for a full swipe. So yeah, Pokemon is just not a game, at least I should say Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is just a game I would not recommend. It's a little bit different when it comes to Pokemon Go, a little bit different when it comes to Pokemon Masters. But when I'm talking about Pokemon, because Pokemon Go is a mobile game, and also it's technically a game that you can play to like lose weight, right? It's a game that, there's more of a socialization aspect to it. Pokemon Masters is also just a gacha game, and there's also a lot of, what's it, when you remember something, reminiscing, it's, yeah, I forgot that word, but it's, well, there's a lot of trainers that, anyways, it's, regardless, I would not recommend it. However, that's if you've never played Pokemon. If, let's say, you are, I can't false swipe this Pokemon. Alright, change of plans, I have to Ruination, which is going to be a bit complicated. But I do have Ruination Pokemon. Okay, I didn't prepare. I forgot this Pokemon was Go, so I can't full swipe. So let's remember move Ruination instead of full swipe, or instead of Sucker Punch here. Oh, I'm an idiot. I should have. Okay, well, Golden Goo, I guess are going to be replaced. Because this Pokemon knows how to use Shadow Force, if I recall. So we're going to, well, let's start off with Gallade for the paralysis, and then Chi and Pow is going to Ruination maybe 3 times. Weaken the health to 1/8 of full. That should be good enough, right? But anyways, let's say you're an avid Pokemon player. You've played most of the Pokemon main series games. You may have even dabbled in a Mystery Dungeon. You may have even, dabbled in Pokemon Masters, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Shuffle. There's a lot of Pokemon games, guys. There's a lot of Pokemon games. Maybe you watch a lot of the anime. Maybe you're hardcore in Pokemon Go. Maybe, along once upon a time, you were shiny hunting, you were breeding, you were competitive battling. You're an avid Pokemon fan. You played a Pokemon TCG. You're an avid Pokemon fan. You have a lot of Pokemon. You know what I mean. You like Pokemon. Pokemon is a decent part of your gaming life. If you're this person, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, in my opinion, is a must play. Right? It's a must play. Not a game to completely avoid, like I would recommend someone who has never played Pokemon. But if you've played a lot of Pokemon, then in my opinion, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a must play. It's a must play. Again, the reason is it's a fresh take on the Pokemon main series game, right? There's a treasure hunt where you can you can do gym battlings, you can do exploration. There's a new Dynamax, not Dynamax, that's not in this game. There's a new concept of Terastalization, right? It also has a DLC, and so there's more than one region, right? There's technically a few other regions. I think I'm going to give one more Ruination. This should be good. There's a few other regions, right, of the game. It's really easy to... Oh, this Pokemon has Moonblast. That's not good. It's really easy to... Yeah, it's really easy to EV train Pokemon. IVs, it's really easy to get. Shiny hunting is really easy now because of sandwiches. There's all, yeah, the whole sandwich mechanic. So it makes leveling up and doing a bunch of other stuff a lot easier, right? Swords dance, I suppose. Right now there's a lot of events going on, so you can capture a bunch of Pokemon. You can easily capture 6 IV Pokemon and like of the event Pokemons. With the DLC, it unlocks a bunch of legendaries, and so like literally right now I'm catching Lunala, which is I believe an exclusive before this game was released. It was exclusive to Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon, right? So they're releasing a bunch of legendaries. Easy access to all the stars, which you can shiny hunt now. You know, easy access to a lot of stuff. There's mints in this game, so you can change your mints for better stats. You know, there's a bunch of quality of life mechanics. I heard that, I haven't tried this, but if you use a rare candy on a level 100 not evolved Pokemon, you can evolve them now with a rare candy. Stuff like that. So, it's just, and honestly, you know, it's a familiar game. It's this familiar battle mechanics. There's new moves, there's new Pokemon, sure, but you know, once you learn the new Pokemon typing, the new moves, you know, it's pretty familiar game, you know, with a familiar concept. And honestly, you know, for me, I would consider myself an avid Pokemon enjoyer. I've been having a ton of fun with this game. More fun than I would probably have with Palworlds. Not to say Palworlds is a bad game, but again, and not to say Palworlds is a bad game, not to say Pokemon is a good game, or Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a good game, but like, it's just more up my alley. You know, this game is just more up my alley than what's it, Palworlds would be. And of course, you know, there's still competitive battling, and there's still, you know, you can still play with your friends, stuff like that. So it's all there. It's all there. And also, okay, I mean, there's another concept I want to talk about, but I think I'll leave that for a little bit later. But yeah, that's the thing about Pokemon games. And that's honestly one of the bad things about Pokemon games. Is that Pokemon games is such an easy recommend for anyone who has played a lot of Pokemon games. But it's a very hard recommend for someone who hasn't played a lot of Pokemon games. And I think that's the main problem with Pokemon, is that because people who never play Pokemon shouldn't really touch this game, and people who've played a lot of Pokemon should touch this game, it leaves it so that at the end of the day, Pokemon is able to make a bad game and people will still play it. Or when I mean people, I mean like avid Pokemon fans. They don't need to put a lot of effort into their games, and they don't need to put a lot of time into developing. They don't need to optimize the game well. They don't need to move the game into other platforms, because they know people will still play the game. You know, I mean, this is like a very common sentiment. I think a lot of people are, you know, thinking the same way, is that Pokemon doesn't really need to innovate or make their game super good, because they know that people will buy their game regardless. I would buy this game regardless, you know, or at the state it is currently, I would buy the game regardless, just because I really like Pokemon. And then because of that, it ends up not being a game that's good in the times, right? There's a lot of better games out there than Pokemon. Again, Game of the Year last year, last year was Baldur's Gate 3. And I think the Game of the Year before that was Elden Ring. Both of those games absolutely smashed Pokemon in terms of, you know, the gameplay and the graphics and all that stuff. But again, think about it. Those games you can't really give to children, especially Baldur's Gate. Well, I guess you can censor some of the stuff. I think Kyogre is supposed to be somewhere around here, if I recall. Oh my, what the heck just happened with my map? Indeed, right? And so that's the problem with Pokemon, is that, you know, it's still like a good game in the eyes of people who play Pokemon. But like, and if you're an avid Pokemon enjoyer, then it's still like a game that you'd play. But for a person who has never played Pokemon, yeah, there's tons of other better games, which is why like Game Freak and like the people who develop Pokemon can get away with making not so good games, is because people will buy it anyways. And that's kind of the problem. That's kind of the major problem, in my opinion, plaguing Pokemon currently. Is that kind of fact that, yeah, Pokemon could could be a lot better, but I mean, it doesn't need to be a lot better because it's still gonna get tons of people buying the game and whatnot. I need to focus a little bit because I forgot where Kyogre is. I thought Kyogre was around here, but like I haven't seen it. I forgot if it's in these rocks or... Wait a minute, am I even in the right place? Why does my map keep glitching out like that? Is Kyogre up here? I think Kyogre's up here. I think I just went in the wrong place. I looked for Kyogre off camera, so I knew where Kyogre was. But I think I just totally forgot where to go. I think Kyogre is actually up here. Oops, my bad. Yep, there it is. Oops. I'm freaking just wasting time. So yeah, that's kind of the problem with Pokemon. And again, that what I just said isn't anything new. It's kind of like, yeah, people understand that Pokemon can get away with making not so good games because people will buy them regardless. And again, like I said, this game, in my opinion, is a must play if you're an avid Pokemon player because there's so much things to do. There's so much new things. There's so much quality of life things. And so it's all in all just a game that I would definitely recommend avid Pokemon enjoyers play. That being said, though, I will give Pokemon a little bit of... Because I mean, all that stuff is people have already talked about. But I will give Pokemon something. I will talk about something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. And I think it's really important. This thing that, again, I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about. But the thing about Pokemon is that it's one of those games where, like, the connectivity with Pokemon is like unparalleled. Like actually unparalleled. Okay, what do I mean by connectivity with Pokemon? If you played, you know, Pokemon really makes sure, like they really try their best to make it so that, you know, the Pokemon games connect with each other, right? You can trade Pokemon from one generation to the next, and then that generation to the next, and then that generation to the next, right? If you have a Game Boy with like red and blue, you know, you can transfer those Pokemon over to the newer games, and then from the Game Boy games you can transfer them to the DS games. From the DS games you can transfer them into the 3DS games. From the 3DS games you have Pokemon Bank, right, which you can transfer in to from Pokemon. I mean, you can't do it now because if you didn't buy, I mean, you could, yeah, if you didn't buy, you know, Pokemon Red, Blue, Silver on your 3DS, you can't do this. But now you can transfer Pokemon from the Game Boy games directly into Pokemon Bank. If you have a 3DS, which have those games, right? And then you can transfer those Pokemon from Pokemon Bank into Pokemon Home, right? Is that how it works? And then now you can transfer the Pokemon from Pokemon Home into your... The newest games, the game I'm playing right now. So you can transfer Pokemon all the way from Red to Scarlet and Violet, and that is like over 20 years of support for Pokemon. Isn't that insane? And also, don't forget about Pokemon Go. You can connect Pokemon Go into Scarlet and Violet. And then you could connect games, even like non-main series games. Like I don't consider Pokemon Legend of Arceus a main series game because it's, you know, it has a lot of different mechanics. I think that game doesn't have competitive battling. Like there's no multiplayer in that game, and so, you know, multiplayer is kind of a main staple of Pokemon games. And that game doesn't really have competitive battling, right? But that game you can still connect to Pokemon Home, and so it just has so much connectivity, you know. If you spent a crazy amount of time in Pokemon, you know, in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, let's say. Let's say you shiny hunted a full team of Pokemon in that game. You can shiny hunt legendaries because legendaries aren't locked in that game. You can shiny hunt starters in that game because the starters aren't shiny locked, right? You can do all that. You can train them. You can get all the ribbons, right? You can get all the ribbons to bling out your Pokemon. And again, it's a lot of work. But if you want to do it, you can do it. And then you can transfer those Pokemon into Gen 4. And then, again, collect the ribbons. And then you can transfer them into, like, you know, Gen 5, Gen 6, whatever. Get more ribbons. Yeah, you're investing a lot of time into the older games. That you can move these Pokemon into the newer games and into Pokemon Home. And then in this game, you can still have your shiny, your shiny Kyogre. Let's say you shiny hunted a shiny Kyogre, which has all the ribbons. In Pokemon Home and in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Kyogre will still be shiny and it will still have all your ribbons. And again, as long as you have all the consoles, as long as you have all the cables, the connectivity, the internet, the accounts, the Pokemon bank accounts and all that stuff, you can still do this. And your work from potentially 20 years ago, you can still see the labors of your work in the newest game. And that's kind of, in my opinion, the greatest thing about Pokemon. It's just that there's so much longevity. And I kind of said this to someone, but when you play Pokemon, it doesn't really feel like you're wasting time. I mean, I am kind of wasting my time. But like, you can, like this Kyogre that I'm catching right now, I can still use this Kyogre, hopefully in future games. Right? I can transfer this into the next generation Pokemon game as long as Pokemon Home still gets support. Which Pokemon Bank is still getting support, stuff like that. And so, or I shouldn't say Pokemon Bank is still getting support, but you can still use it, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's the thing about Pokemon game that makes it so good, is that there's all this connection. And so even if you end up with a lackluster game like Scarlet and Violet kind of happened to be, well, it still connects with the older game, It still has all this connection with Pokemon Home and all this stuff. And so it's still like a game that people still want to play. Because again, I just think that this connection, this value, I'm putting a lot of value in this connection and to support that Pokemon have. Because let's be honest here, Power Worlds, ain't no way you're going to be able to transfer those Pokemon into other worlds. Isn't Power Worlds, actually now I think about it, Power Worlds has like servers, right? You can have a single player server. You can have like a multiplayer server. You can play on big servers, right? But like, you can't transfer those pals into other worlds, right? If you capture this really cool pal that you really like, maybe it's your first pal, or maybe it's a very, the pal didn't have a high capture rate and you were able to capture it in Pal Worlds. You can't transfer that Pokemon, or I'm sorry, you can't transfer that pal into other worlds, right? Like, it's stuck in that world. Well, if I capture a shiny Kyogre in Pokemon Sapphire, when Pokemon Sapphire first released, if I still have that save file, and if if that copy of Sapphire isn't broken, I mean, you can always fix it. If, it's hard to be able to fix it. I don't know how to do that, but if an electrician, or like not electrician, but someone who fixes, electronics like Game Boy games, you can be able to transfer that Pokemon all the way to this game. And so the connectivity is crazy, and I feel like it will still be crazy. And again, there's still so much more to talk about this. The competitive battling is still thriving. Pokemon TCG is still thriving. And so, like, that's what makes Pokemon good, in my opinion. It's not the game itself. Scarlet and Violet is kind of a lackluster game. But when you play Pokemon, you're in this ecosystem of connectivity. And again, there's just so much out there for Pokemon. There's the mobile games. There's the real-life products. Like the plushies. There's the trading card game. There's the competitive battling. There's so much to it. And so, I don't want to, like, say, Pokemon is kind of this bad game that people who never play Pokemon shouldn't play. I mean, you're signing up for this whole ecosystem if you play the game. And that's kind of the major, I guess, the major strong suit of Pokemon, in my opinion. And Power Worlds is never going to have that. Perhaps Power Worlds will have that if it keeps getting support for 20 plus years and you can transfer your Pals into other servers, other worlds. But I don't think that that's the case, If Power Worlds has a TCG, if Power Worlds has a competitive battling, if Power Worlds has sellable plushies, if Power Worlds has I haven't even mentioned the Pokemon TV show, the Pokemon anime. Again, there's so much to it. There's just so much to Pokemon. And so that's the strong point of Pokemon, and that's the strength of that Pokemon has. Yeah, the video game is lackluster, but does your video game franchise have a TV series? Does it have a trading card game that's popping off? Does it have all this other stuff, So, yeah. Again, I probably didn't talk about this topic too well. One day I do want to revisit this topic. Maybe I'll talk about it in one of my other YouTube channels. But this video is already getting a bit long. I did capture all the legendaries that I intended to capture. Interestingly enough, next time I won't be capturing more legendaries. I actually plan on doing something else next video. Where's my Lugia? Hello, Lugia? 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 There's my Lugia. Okay. So let's go ahead and check out some of these Pokemon. Interestingly enough, Lugia has water terastalization. Also, Lugia has a bad nature because you kind of want Lugia to be tanky, and lowering special defense isn't the greatest thing in the world. Lunala, raise special attack again, lower special defense isn't the best. Psychic Terastalization is pretty okay there. Kyogre, again, a pretty all of my legendaries have crap natures. They're all terrible. Let's look at the IVs. Actually, good special defense IVs, good defense IVs, pretty decent HP IVs. You know what? We take these. Good special attack IVs. We also take that. It's not terrible. Kyogre's pretty bad. Okay. Anyways, let's unlock our next 3 legendaries, and then we'll go from there. Again, a little bit of a longer video, but now that I'm recording on a PC, I'm able to record these longer videos, so all good. Verizon treat. Virizion treat. There's a Virizion treat. You know, Virizion Falfire, rare that one, not your run-of-the-mill Pokemon. Speaking of Virizion, I do recall this one particular encounter I had when I was a younger fellow. I tell you no lies, I simply came across Virizion resting among the trees one day while I was on one of my adventures around Paldea. And what trees they were, all done in these mysterious patterns I've never seen. We stayed there for a good while, me and Virizion, grazing at one another twixt those fanciful trees. But that old Virizion, it didn't run off, just gave me a curious look, you know? So I sat there and told it about my adventures, and it listened kindly. It was a kindly air the whole time. I love the snacks that you made there, so you might just have a shot at meeting it too. If you run to old Virizion, you be sure to give it my best. Old Virizion sounds like a very cute Pokemon. That is where the poison, where the poison base is. The poison Team Star base, and so I know where that is. Also, Virizion is a BBQ Violet exclusive. Now we are back to the BBQ Scarlet exclusives, so this is gonna be good. Special snacks. I earned a Suicune snack. Suicune snack. There's a Suicune snack. You know Suicune's popular, that one, not your run-of-the-mill Pokemon. Speaking of Suicune, I do recall this particular encounter when I was a young fella. See, I spotted Suicune once while I was out enjoying the famous lakes you got in Paldea. I know of the Dragon Lake. It might be the Dragon Lake. We ended up having a little contest of skill, seeing which one of us could get all the way to shore fastest. Oh, Great Lakes could also, I was talking about the Dragon Lake to the east, but it could also be the Gigantic Lake to the west. So on shore, we were off like a shot, but that's Suicune. Well, it runs right over the water. Now do it. Me just being your everyday human, the best I can manage was a nice solid backstroke. Backstroke's not bad. It was a fine race though, mighty fine, even if that Suicune did end up beating me by a whisker. It did like loves the snack you had there, so you might be able to have a shot at meeting it too. You want to Suicune, be sure to give it my best. Okay, so probably on the lake northwest of Paldea. 40 solo quests, earn yourself a special snack. I got an Articuno treat. Articuno treat. Not that there's an Articuno treat. You know, Articuno Farfilier, that one, not your run-of-the-mill Pokemon. Speaking of Articuno, I do recall this encounter, pretty good encounter when I was a young fella. See, I found a lovely pond up in the snowy peaks of Paldea. I know exactly where. Oh, well, there's a few ponds, but I mean, that narrows it down a lot. And I decided to go for a dip, hankering for a bit of cold water swimming. When, would you believe it, Articuno comes swooping down along the nearby waterfall and starts flying about above me, singing away. I was tickled pink. Went on merrily singing with Articuno even as the sun set and the moon rose. But before I knew it, it was morning again. Love the snack out there, so you might just have a shot at meeting it too. If you run into old Articuno, be sure to give him my best. Okay, I have a pretty good idea of where all these guys are. I'm not going to be capturing them in the next video because I have plans on doing other stuff. But Articuno's probably there's a pond here that has a waterfall, perhaps, or there's this pond. There's also these ponds. So Articuno's probably there. Virizion is probably in the Tang Tree thicket somewhere in here. The area's not that big, so it's not going to be that bad. Suicune is probably on one of the shorelines along this lake. We just encountered Lunala over here, so I would assume that Suicune would probably be around this area, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Anyways, that's not my plan for next time. I'm almost done with my Blueberry Academy Pokédex. I'm only missing 2 Pokemon, and they are right here. Yeah, you can probably guess what they are, judging by the other 5 Pokemon at the end of my Pokédex. I already have some, let's say, Virgin exclusives that I'm not really supposed to have, but I traded them. So, indeed, I need 2 more Pokemon, and I have an idea where to get those 2 Pokemon. So, next time, in Pokemon Scarlet, the Indigo Disk, we will try to complete the Blueberry Academy Pokédex. So, thank you so much for watching. You're beautiful the way you are, and I'll catch you in that video. Hopefully, my conversation about Pokemon and Poliwhirl was a good one. Again, it wasn't scripted or anything, so I hope that I was able to put in everything, articulate everything well. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.